I paid over $1,000 for these 4 broken handhelds. Let's see if I can fix them and make some money. So I actually got a good enough deal on these that I probably could sell them for parts and still make money. These go for about $300 on eBay just for parts. So I have about $1,200 in parts, plus this one has the Turbo Vision, which is worth something too. Now, if I can fix each one of these, I could get around $400 to $500 for each one. I haven't tested any of these yet, so let's do that now and see what's wrong with them. So handheld number 1 is missing the battery cover. We've got some discoloration, possible corrosion down here in the battery compartment. But let's get some batteries in and see what it does. These things are battery eaters. 6 AA's, and I've heard they lasted for about 3 hours. All right, let's see if we have power. And nothing. Not even close. Not even trying. Oh, I just turned it off. Let's try turning it on. Yep, just nothing. Okay, let's get this thing apart, see what's going on the inside. And we're using a pH0 to remove these screws. These are pretty small screws. Interesting. Never had one of these apart before. In fact, I've never even held one in my hands previous to buying these for this video, so it's always fun taking apart something new. The screws are different sizes. The ones in the middle are the longest ones so far. So we've got 2 of the same size long screws here and 2 short ones here, which makes sense. Okay, now there is something connected to the side. Ooh, to both. Oh, we got all sorts of stuff going on in here. And definitely some corrosion down in there, I see. Okay. But, oh, here's a major problem. The battery cable is totally disconnected right there. Oh, that'd be amazing if that's all that was wrong with this one. Okay, but I do want to take this out and inspect the other side of this, this board right here. So let's get all these cables removed. Also, I want to make sure that there's not a bunch of corrosion everywhere on this thing. So there's a lot of cables actually. Well, 2, 3, 4 different cables here. But all pretty easy to remove. There we go. Oh, that's actually just for these cables that go to the battery, so we can get that out. So here's this part. We can get that out of the way. Now, I'm assuming there's some more screws. One. Gotta be more than one screw holding this thing on. Okay, maybe not. Oh, gotta get this ribbon cable removed. Come on. Oh, that one's in there tight. There we go. Okay, now, oh, we got 2 boards in here. Okay, one, not sure why that is, but it's all soldered together, so have to remove these 3 screws to get that off. I'll use a Phillips number 1 for that. Looks like it should be about the size that'll fit that. Okay, now that should, I think, pop out. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Oh yeah, that's a game slot connector. So we want to look at these capacitors. I don't see any of them bulging or leaking as far as I can tell so far. I think these, oh, that one, there you got a major problem here. But is that a capacitor issue or from the battery compartment issue? Either way, we got a major problem there. I'm not sure what this is. So we'll have to inspect that. I'm gonna have to remove this metal shield, I think, to get this off and see what's under there. And other than that, the rest of these don't look too bad. Oh, this capacitor is definitely leaking right here. It's got some black goo around it. So that's going to be a problem for sure. So we've got to deal with this issue, we've got to deal with this issue, and then we got to get the wires fixed for the battery connection. But let's figure out this guy first. So the first thing we need to do is remove this metal shield. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 points we need to remove the solder from. So I'm going to use some solder wick and try and do that. So first we need to flux it up though. Put plenty of flux on each one. That'll just help the solder flow right into my wick. Okay, here we go. One. Two. Three. And one more. Four. There we go. Okay, now this one is covered by epoxy, which is annoying. Hopefully I can get this epoxy off of here. Oh, okay, that actually came off pretty easy. All right, that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Okay, and whatever that is, I finally got the cover off. And it looks like it's some sort of transformer, so I don't expect that's a problem. Now, this capacitor just fell off the board when I was working, so it could be just this capacitor that leaked. I'm gonna remove all this goo just to see if there's anything under there that we need to clean and worry about, because there could be a problem under there as well. And just looking at it, there's nothing under here. This is all nice and clean. So I think what we had is just a capacitor that just totally leaked. So we need to replace that, clean this all up, see if there's any damage on any of the traces, and then we can get to the other repairs on this board. Let's get into the microscope now so we can look at the damage here and see if it's going to be fixable. Okay, and this is where the damage started. Definitely have some torn pads. All of this is not ideal, but it's fine. This resistor back here, we may need to resolder. Clean it for sure at least. This via doesn't look like it's connected to anything here, so it's fine here. But this one over here could be a problem. And we just got more corrosion back here, so we get this scraped and cleaned off, and then we can inspect this a little bit better. Okay, and this is looking a lot better. We still got some pretty stuck on corrosion right here. Got to get all of that off because it'll kind of just like keep spreading and eating away at things. Is that a through hole? That could be a major issue. And we have more here as well. And up here looks a little corroded as well. Man, the more we go here, the more damage we find. Okay, this guy I'm a little worried about here for sure. Okay, now let's clean this up again and see what kind of damage we're looking at. So this pad has been torn off, this pad has been torn off. This via might need some work, because that connects to that pad as well. And then we need to inspect these two vias up here and this via right here. Okay, so I think the first thing we should do is check these vias so then we know whether we need to do any work here. Also, there's a little more corrosion here I need to get out. And here we are on the other side of the board. This is one of the vias. This is one of the vias. This is one of the vias. And this is 1. This might be 2. So we've got to get these things cleared out a little bit better. Got to make sure there's continuity from one side to the other. I'm going to be using some K files for dental use only. I mean, I'm using a dental pick also, so I feel like this is definitely considered dental work. It's the first time I've used these. I saw these in a comment on one of my videos that I should use these. So I bought some. This one looks like the perfect one. So let's see how this works. I don't want to bend it. Ooh. It works great for that one. There we go. Works good there. Okay. This one up here, though. Oh, there we go. Got that. Man, this works amazing. I don't know. I don't remember who commented this. I think there was a couple people that did. So if that was you, thank you. This is a great tool for cleaning these vias out. Man, that works good. I don't want to do it too much because I don't want to wear through the copper if there's any copper there still. But I want to do it enough to get all the corrosion out of them. That thing works so good. Okay, that is looking amazing now. Let's clean these up. Look at that. So good. I can see a little more green on the edge of this one. Yep. And a little more green on the edge of this one. And these ones look pretty good down here. Okay, much better. Let's check the other side. And I do want to clean these from this side too. Just make sure we got everything. Yeah, that feels good. That one's good. Yeah, these are good. All right, cool. So that is my new favorite tool for cleaning vias out for sure. Works so good. And along with that, I'm going to use some paper points, just little pieces of paper to put right down in those, and that should dry them out. Let's try using a 15. If you've ever had a root canal, you probably have had a bad experience with these. Not a bad experience, but just a bad association, I guess. Come on. There we go. Oh yeah, that works good. Yep, that's drying these right out. Man, so cool. All right, that also worked great. I'm a pretty big fan of these dental tools. Okay, and now with all that done, we need to see if there's continuity from this side of the board through the via to the other side, and if there's not, then we need to fix that circuit trace and until there is. Same with over here, and same with right here. All right, so we're gonna go from right here to, where are we at back here? Okay, we seem to be good on this one. Okay, so that one's good. Let's check this one right here. Good there. And good there. Okay, those are all good. Let's just double check this one over here. Not there. That one's also good. And one more. This one here to here. Okay. So all of those vias are actually good. So all we have to do is worry about getting that capacitor mounted on there. Now before we get to replacing this capacitor, I wanted to show the damage these things do when they leak. Here you can just see the underside is just totally corroded from all that leaking. So that's the problem with these capacitors when they leak, but we've got a new one, so let's get it replaced. So the first thing we need to do is prep these pads. I'm going to put some flux on them and then see if they'll take any solder. I think they probably will, but let's find out. Sometimes when these pads get corroded like this, and it's hard to get solder to stick to them, so let's see what happens. All right, so I have my large iron so I can get plenty of heat on these joints, hopefully. Got to get down the right angle though. There we go. Let's add a little more flux. Actually, I might need to clean this up and then add some flux. Getting a lot of gunk off here, so that's looking good. Give this a bit of a scrubbing with a Q-tip. Oh, look at all that it's getting off. Okay, we're getting there. I want a little more contact right over here. So I'm actually gonna scrape away a little more of the coating, just so I can hopefully get a little bit better contact. This side I think is pretty good. All right, now more flux. And then we'll come in with more solder. Yep, good there. All right, that's pretty good. Now let's see if we can fit our capacitor on here. It's not gonna fit like it normally would, but I think if we put one side here, oh, we need to twist it a bit. How does that work for the other side? Ooh, not quite. Okay, we need more room over here. So we're gonna move it this way. Try to anyway. Nope. Almost. Okay, now that's better. So we'll come in on this side, heat that up. Okay, that is looking good. I do want to add more solder there. I feel like It doesn't have as much on there as it could, and I want a nice, good connection there. Okay, we're pretty good there. Pretty good there. Yep, good, good. Now, there is this via. I'm going to bring a wire through the via, and oh, the via is right down there. Wasn't expecting that to cover that up. That's a problem. So, we need to take this thing back off. All that work I just did. Okay, that's the via. Let's run the wire first, and then we'll connect that capacitor. So the wire is going to go down through. There we go. Just like that. And then we're going to bring this over like that. And connect it over here. Okay. Now we should be able to get our capacitor installed. So, one lead right there. Good. The other one right over here. Good. Okay. Okay, that is connected nicely. Now we need to connect our wire. Okay, there we go. Now I just need to connect the other side and we'll be done. So this actually connects to this capacitor right here. So that's what we're going to have it connect to. Add some flux. Okay, so that part of the job is done, but now we have a couple more problems. The first one is this capacitor. Like I've already showed, it's got some black goo leaking out, so we need to fix that problem. Then I noticed this capacitor has a problem. This capacitor might have a problem. And one of these, this capacitor also might have a problem. So I'm actually just gonna get those replaced. And I have 2 complete kits, but I have 4 of these Turbo Expresses. So while I want to just replace all the capacitors in all of them, I don't have all the parts for it. So I am just gonna replace the ones that are visibly leaking, and we'll see if that's enough to fix it. So let's start out with this capacitor that's leaking the black goo. We need to suck up the solder from these 2 joints, and then we can just push the legs through. So we'll add some flux. I'm gonna use some solder wick to suck that solder up. There are various ways you can do this. You could use a solder sucker, and that would probably work just fine. My solder sucker doesn't work just fine right now because I haven't cleaned it out enough recently. So it needs a good cleaning. Okay, there's one. Come on. Getting there. A little more. When in doubt, add more flux. Something doesn't seem to be working right. You probably need more flux. Okay. Now let's try and get the rest of that sucked up. Okay. Close enough, at least I think. There we go. Now we'll clean this all up. Make sure any corrosion is cleaned off of the board here. Let's check the other side. And that doesn't look too bad. So we got one leg started. Gonna heat this hole up and get the other one through. There we go. Actually, now I just remember we need to fold this capacitor down, so I'm going to need some extra room here. So this gets folded down like that. Oh, we need a little bit more room. There we go. Now some more flux. And some more solder. One for that joint, some for that joint. And there we go. Now we got that one replaced. That is looking great. Now let's move on and do this one. This one's going to be pretty difficult to get to, but I think we can do it. I'm going to heat one leg at a time and then pull up while I'm doing that. But before I do that, let's look at this old capacitor. Look at how gross that is. Just leaking right out there. Okay, now let's get to this other one. This one is in a really tight space right down here. So hopefully we'll be able to get to that. I'm gonna heat up the positive side first. Hopefully that'll make the other side easier to get to. Or easier to get off once I get to the other side. Okay, so is that warm? Ooh. That thing won't pull up at all. Oh, getting it. Okay. Okay, we got that side. Now we need to see if we can get this side. Come on. It's hard to get enough heat down there. There we go. We did actually get it though. Okay, great. I'm gonna remove some of this solder. This point right here, I kept touching with my iron, not on purpose, but that's just where it kept touching. Okay. Now, got some fresh solder on there. I'm gonna clean this all. Okay, that area actually looks really good, so I don't think there were any problems from that leaking capacitor. Now we're gonna add some more flux. There and there. And then come in and place the new capacitor. Right there is good. Can I get it with my iron though? Okay, good there. Now this side, good. Ah, just can't get enough heat down. Oh, there we go. There we go. A little bit of melted on the plastic, but totally worth it. Now we've got that soldered down nicely. Okay, that one's done. That one needs it, and I'm gonna do that one too while we're at it. These ones seem to be really bad at leaking, so, or really good at leaking, I guess. All right, so let's get these ones done next. Now I do want to break these away from this epoxy. That's just gonna hold it on there while I'm trying to remove it, and we don't want that. We want this to go as easy as possible. This one's going to be a real problem because there's not much room in here. Let's see if there's enough room to get my soldering iron back there. Can we do it? Oh, maybe? Okay, I think there is. That's good. Okay, oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so get this on here. Okay, good on that one. Now I gotta get this one off. There we go. And this one next. This one should be a lot easier. Tack it down there. And then same over here. There we go. And there we go. All right, great. So those ones are definitely the worst. I don't see any others that look like they've been leaking. These ones all look fine. And since I only have a limited number of capacitors, I think it's time to put this thing back together enough to test. Oh, but we got to fix those battery wires. So let's do that next. Okay, so this wire is fully corroded. That is crazy. This one also doesn't look amazing, but it is still attached. Also, even down in this connector, it looks like it's kind of green, so we need to get some vinegar and get down in there. So let's do that next, and we can also put it on these contacts too and get that cleaned up. Okay, I got some vinegar on this toothbrush right here. Hopefully this connector is good and the battery and the connections, the cable connection in here is good. I think it'll be good, but it's hard to know for sure. Okay, that connection looks really good. This one is getting there. Still got a little bit corrosion on it though. Coming off much easier now that we got some vinegar on it. Now this vinegar is only 5% acidity, so it's not crazy. It's not like the 30% cleaning vinegar or whatever you can get. Okay, now the end of this wire is definitely no good. So I'm hoping if we just snip it back a little bit, it'll be okay. And I think it will. It does look actually quite a bit better already. But let's get the shielding off. See what it looks like inside. There we go. Okay. We'll use some vinegar on that just to make sure it's nice and clean. Then we need to solder up this wire and solder that right to that connection right there. And of course, we first need to flux it up. There we go. And flux this up as well. There we go. So we'll add some solder to the wire. There we go. And now with that wire all fixed, we got to clean up all these battery contacts. So I'm going to get that vinegar back out and just brush it all around and get all of that cleaned out. Okay, so now we need to make sure that this wire is good from here to the connector. So we'll back probe the connector like this and touch it here. Okay, so I don't know if my probe got back to the connector far enough. Yep, there we go. That one and this one, same thing, good. So now we know that that's good. Now we can get this thing back together and see if all that work we did was worth it. Okay, all back together. Game's in. Let's see if it powers on. Here we go. Oh, nothing. Wait. No, the screen does get a little brighter. Can't really, oh, there we go. So the screen definitely gets a little brighter, but it doesn't do anything at all. Okay. There we go. So you can see the screen gets a little bit brighter, but really doesn't do anything. All right, got to get it back apart, see if we can figure out what's going on. So I have it back apart, and one thing I wanted to check is this controller board here. So I have the screws out. Let's have a look. Oh, wow. That capacitor leaked all over this board. I mean, all over, all the way down here. Like, all through here, all through here. Holy cow. Oh my goodness. That is crazy. So this entire board, from all the way from here where the capacitor is, all the way up here. This is not great. I feel like when we have this level of corrosion, there's probably, oh yeah, these carbon pads are just disintegrated. Look at that. Okay. So I think that kind of tells us what we're going to end up doing with this one. I think I can replace this board, and that may be an option. I think for now, though, we're going to use this one for parts to see if we can fix the other ones with these boards. Although we know this board isn't working, this board is also not working. So this one might be just unfixable. I'm not sure. But I'm going to set this one aside for now. This has gotten a lot more intense. If I do decide to fix this one, I am going to need to get another one of these boards because I think this one is just not going to be fixable. All right, let's move on to number 2. And with all the batteries in, we can turn it over and see what happens when we turn it on. Oh, we get the screen sort of comes on. Oh, that's actually decently bright. Let's see. Brightness control sort of works. Yeah, brightness control works. Definitely have an audio issue, just get kind of a whining noise. Let's see what happens when we try a game in it. And with the game installed, let's see what happens. And we get the exact same thing. All right, let's open this one up and see what it's like on the inside. As a side note, I don't actually know if any of those games work, so hopefully we're not just testing bad games. But given the fact that there's just nothing displayed on the screen no matter what, I think it's probably not a game card issue. I think it's probably something going on the inside of this thing. So far there is no battery corrosion, which is nice. I feel like it's probably a capacitor issue. And if this one's not too damaged, I may just need to replace all of the capacitors. I just need to buy a couple more capacitor kits so I can just replace all of them and any of these that look fixable, which is hopefully all of them except for that first one. But we'll find out here in a second. All right, let's see what the inside looks like on this one. Oh, we got some sort of mod going on here. I don't even know what all this is. That's a lot of wires though. And this wire is just not connected to anything, okay. But did they replace the capacitors before they did the mod? I think we need to take this apart further and find out. That's just so many wires. I'm not sure what mod that's going to be for. And we have new capacitors. That is some ugly soldering, but they are new capacitors. This one looks like, oh no, I guess it's connected. Although they didn't replace this, I think that's the original one. Same with these two. Why would they not replace those? I don't know. So all those wires are connected down here to the game slot board. But let's get this thing just all the way taken apart here. All right, so we've got, yep, these are all connected to different pins on the game slot. Wow, so this pin on the game slot isn't even connected to anything down here. It's just totally been eaten away by corrosion, but they connected it to here. So this board says region switch. So this is some sort of region free mod, I'm guessing. So they cut these pins where they connected these wires to. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna figure out a couple things. Number one, where this wire goes, and number two, why this thing isn't booting anything up onto the screen. I feel like that has to do with these capacitors that weren't replaced. Not sure why you'd do all that work to replace all of them except for some, although I guess I just sort of did that, so maybe they didn't have enough, I don't know. So I'm thinking we need to replace this one, and this one, and then we might need to remove this shield and replace some under there as well. So here we are under the microscope because that one loose wire needs to be soldered right to this point right here. So I am going to do that. And then I think I'll test it again and just see how it looks, if anything works after that. I feel like some of these capacitors probably need to be replaced, but we'll just give it a try first. All right, let's add a little bit of solder to this point. There we go. Now we can take our wire and solder right there. Come on. There we go. It's a nice strong joint. Now with that done, we can try and power it up and see what happens. All right, and back together enough to test. Let's see what happens. And exactly the same thing. Okay, so I think we got some capacitors to replace in here. I want to look at the other two and see if we just need a whole bunch of new capacitors. Because if we do, I need to get those ordered so we can just get those all replaced. I was hoping there would be other repairs than just capacitors on these, but so far it looks like that might be the main issues. But let's take a look at number 3 and number 4. So for number 3, we get a very dim display when we press the power button. Let's check number 4. And actually, before we check number 4, let's have a look at the inside of this one. We're missing 2 screws right here. That's not great news. Hopefully this one's not too messed up on the inside. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so we're missing some screws, clearly. And somebody replaced capacitors in this? Looks like maybe they did. Let's get these ribbon cables off of here. And we have capacitors not replaced. And there's definitely some leaking, so this one definitely needs capacitors. The rest of it, though, looks to be actually in decent condition. I don't see any major leakage on the capacitors, at least not so much that it's corroding the board. So that's good news. So that's that one. Let's have a look at number 4. Also, I'm assuming the label for the game goes facing up. I don't even know if I'm installing this game correctly. All right, number 4. Got a little bit of a screen. It's hard to see on camera. It does show up. No volume, and the brightness doesn't do anything though. All right, so probably the same thing here, but let's get these screws out and see what we need on the inside. All right, well, let's have a look at the inside of this one. And it looks like everything's there. That's nice. Not missing any screws on this so far, which is really nice. This one also doesn't have any corrosion anywhere that I see, so that is also nice. And that one's leaking. Actually, the rest of them don't look too bad. Okay, that's impressive. So given that this one is probably in the nicest condition, I'm going to work on this one first. See if we can get this one working, and then we'll move on to the others. Meanwhile, I think I need to get some more capacitor kits ordered. Now, I think what I'll do on this one is just replace all the capacitors using the one complete kit that I have. But before I do that, I want to actually just replace this one capacitor right here. From what I've read online, this capacitor affects the screen, and some people say just replacing this one will get it working, so let's try it and find out if it actually does. So first we'll flux it up. Then I'm going to bring my iron in and heat one side, lift that side off the pad, and then heat the other side. Or at least that's the goal. Okay, that side's lifted, I think. And now this side. There we go. Now just have to install the new one. One side. Okay, and easy enough, that one's done. All right, all together. Will it turn on and the screen work? Whoa! That does work. Look at that. That is amazing. I can't believe that just happened. Sound definitely still does not work. It really was just that one capacitor. That is crazy. Okay, well, we still got more capacitors to replace. I think once we replace the capacitors for the sound, that the sound will work, but so far this is great news. Now I'm just gonna get it back apart and we'll replace all the rest of those capacitors. So what I need to do first is remove this shield so we can get to the capacitors under the shield. So I'm just going to be sucking the solder up from this point, this point, this point, and this point I think is under this shield, so I don't know, I might just cut that one or see if I can get under it, but that's what I'm gonna do now and see if we can get the shield off. So unfortunately, in order to get this shield off, I have to take the other shield off, so, oh man. So we're gonna get the other one off, and then we can get the rest of that one, the rest of this one off. We just got one or two more solder points to remove, but, well, let me see if I can get enough heat on this. We just can't get to the solder points because of the other shield. Oh, there we go. That worked. Come on. There we go. Got him. And now with all of those capacitors replaced, that was a lot of work, but I think it's going to be worth it. Let's get this thing back together and make sure it still works and see if it has sound. Number 4 is all back together. Let's see if it turns on. It does. But do we get sound? Oh, yeah, we do. Great sound. And we are off. If I can figure out how to make it go. There we go. Look at that. And let's see if this is an open world. It is definitely not an open world. Okay, so number 4 is all fixed. Let's move on to another one and see if we can fix another one. I actually want to move back to number 1 and see if replacing just that one capacitor will get the screen working on that one too. And here we go. I'm gonna throw some flux on here. Get the old one removed. I have this thing partially in the board still, but I think we can do it even still. Okay, old one is out. Add a little more flux, make sure this is solder is flowing nicely. Get some fresh solder on my iron. Okay, there we go. Now, let's get this one turned on and see if that's enough to fix this one too. So I put the top half of number 3 on the motherboard of number 1, just so we can test it since number 1 is pretty messed up. All right, let's see what happens. Oh, we just get no power at all. Okay, well, I was hoping that would fix number 1, but clearly it does not. Okay, number 1 definitely has more issues, and we will leave it as a parts handheld. All right, let's move on to the real number 3. So I ordered more capacitor kits, so I want to replace this capacitor on number 3 and see if that's enough to get this screen working. After that, I will replace all these other capacitors because you can see that they are bulging a little bit. So let's get that done and just see if that gets the screen working. If soldering is something you're interested in learning and just have no clue how to do it or where to get started, I've actually created some soldering courses that are great for people who have little to no experience. In fact, my first course is absolutely free, and then if you want to learn more, I do have several other paid courses. If you're interested in learning more about that, go to GameConsoleRepairSchool.com. Okay, and here we go. Let's see what it looks like when we turn it on. Do we have a brighter screen? Yes. Yes, we do. Still no sound, but that one single capacitor fixed that screen. That's amazing. There we go. We got a little brighter there. Okay. So now I'm going to get it taken back apart and replace all the rest of the capacitors, and then we'll come back and see if everything else works. Unfortunately, this one's got a little something on the screen here. That at some point will need to be replaced, but that's not what we're worried about right now. Okay, let's get the rest of these capacitors replaced and see if that fixes the sound. So we've got a trace that's been torn off the board here, and this one looks like it's just totally been eaten away. So let's get on the microscope so we can check that out closer. So unfortunately, this pad is torn and this pad is also torn, which means we don't have a great mounting system for that capacitor. So I think what I'm going to do is use either some CA glue or epoxy and epoxy that down. And then we need to make sure the negative, the ground pin is connected here, and the positive pin is connected to this trace right here. So I'm just going to use a little grinding pen to grind off some of the solder mask down here. And then the same thing over here. I'm going to try and do it carefully without destroying this piece, but I might destroy it. All right, and that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do next is attach the capacitor to these circuit traces, and then we will attach the capacitor to the board. If I attach the capacitor to the board first, I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough access to these pins to get them soldered onto the capacitor correctly. So let's add a little flux, a little bit right there, a little bit right here. Now we'll come in with some solder. Now we will try to attach our capacitor somehow. This is gonna be pretty difficult. Yeah, I'm gonna need to extend this one out here a little bit, so I'm gonna add a wire to that. And then we'll attach this side here and this side over there. I'm just thinking about it, I might actually add the wire from here, because I'm afraid if I add it over here, it might, it could tear off. Wire is going to be nice and long, because if it's shorter, then it can melt the solder when I'm trying to solder the other end of it, whereas if it's longer, it's more likely to not do that. Okay, there we go. Let's get that soldered on a little bit better. Okay. Okay, there's that part. Didn't want to go under that trace. What is that about? There we go. Oh, almost. There we go. Okay, now the main thing is trying to get this thing soldered onto that ground pin over there in a way that it will stay where we need it to stay, which could be difficult. So right about there is where we need it. Didn't get it. Okay. I think we need to add more solder over there. It's just not close enough to stay soldered down, or not close enough to connect. All right, more solder there. And so close. Got it. Okay, there's that. Now, we need to solder this side down. Onto this wire. Okay, and I think we have it. Yep. Okay, definitely not ideal, and now we have to fit, I don't know if we're going to be able to fit the other one over here. So this one needs to go on here. Yeah, we're going to have to move this a little bit. Okay. Hopefully we can make this work without causing any problems. Need to twist it more. Okay, I think we're good. Do we have this one on here enough so we can get to, yep. Okay, we can get to the pads now there, I think. Not quite still, man. Okay. So, I need to move this more. Okay, how close are we now? Pretty close. In fact, I think close enough, maybe. That felt good. I'm gonna get in on this side. Okay, I think we're good there. Definitely good there. Oh, wow. That was difficult, but I think we have it. Need to clean this up and then get some CA glue on it. We'll cut that wire off there. Hopefully we can clean that up enough to even get CA glue on it. Yeah, that's good. That might be enough to keep it, but I want to stabilize that a bit. So we'll do that in a little bit. I want to get the rest of these capacitors replaced. But yeah, I'll actually clean this up after I get this big capacitor on here. We'll clean that up and get it glued down so that can dry while we're working with the rest of it here. All right, so need to get this capacitor on here, which also might be a little difficult. Need to get this on here without causing a problem on that other one over there. Got it? Got it. It's not on there totally straight, but it is straight enough. And now we'll get this thing cleaned up and that capacitor glued down. So that whole capacitor right there, that's why the method of pulling on these while you're heating them is not necessarily the best method. But unfortunately, there's also not a lot of great methods to do that, especially like this one here. It's just like crammed in behind this other component. So it's pretty tough to do it any other way sometimes. Okay, there's that one. Now this one. Now same thing, I'm going to clean these up and then add some fresh solder. Good thing is that even though these are almost all in really bad condition, I don't know about almost all, but a lot of them are in really bad condition. Looks like they didn't really like leak all over the board and corrode like some of them do, so that's the good news. I gotta hold this on there while I get my iron back there to solder it down. I think I got it. All right, there's that one, and then this one. Okay. That one went on really well, so we got those three done. These three big ones. Now we need to do these two, being very careful to not mess with this one over here. All right, placement of that one wasn't the best. It's a little misaligned, but that's no problem. It's got a good secure attachment there. Okay, the rest of these I'm gonna replace off camera. If something exciting happens, I will turn on the camera and film it. So we have every capacitor replaced on this board. We have this little capacitor replaced. Now let's get this thing back together and see if the sound works. And back together, batteries are in, game is in. Let's see what we get when we try to turn it on. Screen, do we get sound? Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Holy cow, we get really loud sound. So number 3 is all fixed. Let's move on to number 2 and see if we can fix that one. All right, and back to the mess that is number 2. Okay, so I think the best thing here is probably going to be to replace all the capacitors, even though they already replaced them. I just feel like, I don't know, I don't trust what they did, and also I'm not sure the capacitors they used, if they're good or if there's any problems there. So I think that's going to be our best bet with this one. Yeah, and also like there's some that are still leaking too, so I'm not sure. Maybe what I'll do is replace all the ones that they didn't replace and then see if that's enough to get this thing working. I'm not sure that it will be. I also need to make sure they hooked them all up correct, or they installed them all correctly, but I guess that's what I'll do. These ones, I mean, they mostly look fine and they are soldered on okay. I don't like that they have to be all bent out of shape and stuff like that, but I mean, I think looking at it again, I think what I'll do is just replace all the ones I didn't replace. They probably didn't replace the ones under here, so we'll do that as well. So let's get that done and then see if this thing happens to work. And just as I suspected, these capacitors have not been replaced, and several of them don't look great. These ones are the worst though. These are definitely leaking and bulged, so we'll get those replaced, but I'll just replace all the rest of these as well. And this one is also leaking, which is no surprise. I'm gonna get this done off camera. If I find something interesting, I will for sure film it. All right, and we now have all of those capacitors replaced. So I think we're good. We're ready to put this thing back together and see if it'll work now. All right, and number 2, all back together. We got a game in it. We have the batteries installed. Let's see what happens when we turn it on. The screen lights up and nothing else happens. No sound, no video, no anything. Okay, well, let's open up and have a look at it on the inside one more time and just see if there's anything going on that we can figure out. So we're back under the microscope. I found this capacitor that's not even connected, and then I found this other capacitor that is very loose. So I'm not sure if these are the cause of the problems we're having, but I'm gonna go ahead and get these soldered back in their correct places, and then we can put it back together and test it. I've also noticed there's quite a few capacitors on here that have traces that have been torn up, that the previous person repairing it just soldered to those loose traces. I don't know if those traces are broken somewhere either. So this board is turning into kind of a mess. I think if this doesn't work, I'm gonna just call this one unfixable, because there's so many issues between the capacitor problems and then the circuit trace problems. And then we have the problems with the game slot. Some of the game slot pins are just totally eaten away by corrosion. And then we also have this mod that was installed, and I'm assuming it was installed correctly. I checked a bunch of the wires and it seems to be, but I'm not totally sure on that either. In addition, I'm not super familiar with these mod chips, so I'm not even sure if these are good mod chips or if maybe they're also part of the problem. All right, and there we go. We have it all fixed up. Let's get it back together and see if it works. We've got the battery in. We've got the game card in. Let's see what happens when we try and turn it on. Come on. Oh, hey, the screen brightness changes. I mean, that's good, I guess. But unfortunately, we've just got nothing. So unfortunately, I'm gonna call number 2 not fixable. There's just too many issues on this board, and even if I was able to get it working, there's a good amount of corrosion around the game slot pins, and that could cause problems in the future. So I'm gonna use this for parts for future repairs. And that means we were able to fix these 2 out of the 4 we got. Not the best results. I was hoping for better, but 2 out of 4 still isn't too bad, and I love bringing these old handhelds back to life. Thanks so much for watching today, and I hope you have a good one.